The following is a Comfortably Zoned Radio Network production.
We are back. San Francisco Giants baseball, past, present, and future. The host is Michael Duca, present and accounted for. How are you, sir?
And past, but maybe no future. Who knows?
Oh, there's a future. There's always a future for us. Thank God. No time to think about the future more than spring training. And I understand that it's cold and miserable down there. I wonder how that's going to affect the upcoming season, if this weather is going to last for a long time. What's on the horizon, Michael?
Well, I think what's on the horizon, Ralph, is that they're starting games a week earlier than usual. You know, we've got a week of games under our belt already, or more, and it's March 1st as we're recording this. So, you know, that's just one of the things, you know, one of the unintended consequences that comes up when you decide to shorten the amount of time before games begin in spring training to shorten camp in order to put more days off in the regular season, which is what this is all about, was putting more days off in the regular season.
Right. Now, what I'd like to know is, this is the second year in a row of a disruption. Last year they had the World Baseball Classics going on. Which has been more disruptive?
Oh, I think the WBC is probably more disruptive to teams because you've got pitchers who are being asked to be ready for game action, for competitive game action, and I don't think spring training games are competitive. But, you know, the tournament games are very competitive. You're representing your country, and you're being asked to do that somewhere around March 7th or 8th instead of somewhere around April 7th or 8th. So I think that has a greater effect. On the other hand, this is just cool weather. I mean, it's not like we're, you know, suffering hailstorms down here. It's been very cloudy for a few days. We've had rain after the games a couple of days, but no rainouts. And, you know, it's 62 degrees right now, which is chilly for Arizona. I'm sure that anybody on the East Coast would swap for it in a heartbeat. But it is chilly for Arizona, but the skies are completely clear, and it's a lovely day.
That's good. That is
We'd
good.
call this August weather in San Francisco.
Right. Two things I want to talk about. One of them is the recovery of Orlando Cepeda. I did a show last week in your absence with Patrick Quinlan, former bat boy of the Giants and a really close friend of Orlando's. He was much more grave than back then than things are looking now. Have you heard of anything about his recovery and how that's going?
I wish I had more information than the average person, but I'm really kind of stuck with what everybody else gets. I get the press releases from the team, and the team, things did look very grave at the beginning. I mean, it was rumored to be some kind of serious blow to the head as a result of a fall following some kind of cardiac incident. And things didn't look good. I mean, they were asking family members to come from Puerto Rico. But, you know, the latest that I've heard, I assume, is the latest that you've heard, which is that he's making progress. He's making strides. I have not heard if he's conscious. I have not heard whether or not he's engaging in conversations with people, etc. So I don't have any new information on that front. But if you do, I would be thrilled to hear it.
Well, I don't, and let's keep looking for information, and we can do updates as they come in. He's a terrific hero in San Francisco baseball. He was the hero before Willie. It took the Giants a long time to appreciate Willie. the San Francisco Giants a long time.
Well, the San Francisco fans. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. The team never had any problem appreciating Willie. But I think when the Giants franchise moved, it's only natural the fans wanted a hero of their own. And Orlando fit the bill right off the spot. He was a terrific ball player before he hurt his knee. Not that it stopped him from being a great hitter and a future Hall of Famer, but there was really no comparison. It hurt him a lot defensively.
Well, you're talking about possibly, if you stop and think about, could God design the perfect right-handed hitter for Candlestick Park? The answer was yes, he did. And his name was Orlando Cepeda. I've never seen another right-handed hitter with as much consistent power to right center field as the Baby Bull had. Lots of guys have left field power. Lots of guys have gap-to-gap power. Lots of guys, can go the other way with the ball. But Orlando just innately understood as soon as he stepped in the batter's box at Candlestick Park that right center field was where the carry was going to be, and he set up his swing to drive the ball for distance in that direction virtually all the time.
I remember Jack Clark hitting the ball in much the same way in that direction. Am I off on that?
No, you're not off on that. Jack was also an excellent hitter, and in fact, Jack was probably so good that he may be the reason that Will Clark hasn't had 22 retired yet by the Giants, because it was that. Although if you retire 22 and put the name Clark up on the poster, it kind of fits both of them, doesn't it?
Yes, absolutely. That would be something. A double retire. The only other team that has a double retired number is, to the best of my knowledge, is the Yankees with Bill Dickey and Yogi Berra, number 8.
Yeah, and the thing is, the Giants wouldn't even have to do a double retirement because they could just put up Clark, and fill in your favorite one.
That's right.
It's certainly the best. It's certainly the best Clark platoon I've ever seen.
Yes. I want a Clark bar. Are you old enough to remember that commercial?
I'm old enough to remember O. Henry.
Oh, okay.
I'm old enough to remember the Reggie bar that could stir your drink.
Yes. I can remember fans throwing that. I wasn't there, but fans would throw the Reggie bars onto the field. Apparently they didn't taste all that great.
I guess not. I don't know. My understanding is the grounds crew collected all of those and sent them to Madonna.
Okay. I'll ask you, what impresses you and what worries you about your early spring Giants team?
Well, they seem to, the first thing that I want to do here is everybody who's listening, I want to remind you that, if they win 10-1, that's great. But don't forget, it's spring training. If they lose 10-1, that's sad. But don't forget, it's spring training. These games are not here to keep track of wins and losses. They are here to get ready for the season. And, you might think it's ridiculous to have somebody bunt with runners on first and second and nobody out in the first inning of a spring training game. And it probably is, except when else is he going to get the game opportunity to do that? Because the starters are only in for 2 or 3 at-bats, and you can't count on that option coming open to you the next time he's up. So you'll have managers doing things here in order to give guys game speed practice that maybe aren't traditional strategy. that aren't things that they would do during the regular season. And that's just one of many reasons that you can't pay attention to results, or you can't put anything more onto the fact that the Giants surrendered a huge lead in the ninth inning yesterday and wound up in a 10-10 tie than you can by the fact that they went into the ninth inning trailing 10-0 and scored 6 the day before. It's just spring training, and in fact, those are mostly AA and a few AAA players that are doing that late in the game. If you really think that records count, I think you should probably look at the score after 5 innings.
Right. Because they take out the key players the rookies are just looking for to impress and just stay
They're
healthy.
looking for visibility and an opportunity to show what they can do, and even then you got to feel for them because they're showing what they can do against players that they've been doing it against already. The only difference is they may not have been doing it against the players in this particular organization, but by the 7th inning, you've got mostly AAA and AA players playing against each other, and they've been doing that for a few years now.
Would you say that Dugars is one of those guys who is looking to impress and push the envelope? You're the guy who called Dugar as an imminent prospect weeks ago, way before spring training opened.
Yeah, I think the plan right now is for him to go to AAA, get 200 to 250, maybe 300 at bats, and force his way onto the major league franchise by just outperforming or overperforming at the AAA level. But they are open to the possibility of having him make the roster on opening day. And if he plays his way on, that's great. I mean, the thing you have to be careful with in spring training always is the Mark Leonard, Bob Elliott phenomenon. The guy who comes out and hits .535 in the spring. And so everybody gets excited and you bring him up to the big club and all of a sudden, he starts seeing major league sliders.
Randy Elliott?
Randy Elliott, excuse me, not Bob. Bob Elliott was a pretty good player. Randy Elliott.
Yes. I think Bob Elliott was most valuable player in 1949.
Indeed. I botched my Elliots, but that happens in the desert because my brain dries out.
Okay. Well, I don't need a desert to have my brain dry out. I have that all over you, young man. My brain's been dry for a long, long time. But, there are phenoms. But if he plays Dugar, if he plays his way onto the roster, they're going to have to play him. They're not going to bring up a kid just to sit on the bench.
Well, they're looking for a platoon in center field. They have Austin Jackson, who rakes left-handed pitching. I mean, he hit left-handed. I think he hit 323 or 331 against lefties last year. But they're looking for the left-handed side of that platoon. That's why Gregor Blanco's in camp. That's why Gorky Hernandez is in camp. And Steven Duggar is one of those options.
Is he looked at long-term as a regular, not a platoon player?
Well, I think everybody is hoped to be a regular and not a platoon player when they're signed or when they're drafted. I mean, clearly, when you get down to the 20th
round or so.
The
Giants project him at this time, at this point.
Well, he's not projected as an organizational player. I will tell you that. He is probably their top offensive prospect. Wow.
As young as he is, that could be very interesting. What to do?
Yeah, and I throw in probably because you have to keep Chris Shaw in that mix too.
Is Parker pretty much done as a Giant?
I don't know. I just it's hard to say. He has shown flashes of unfathomable power. And he's a very bright guy, as most University of Virginia graduates tend to be. And, it's hard for me to say whether they're going to have a spot for him on this roster. And what they're going to do with him. I mean, I think he's got a major league career ahead of him still. There are tons of guys in the big leagues who cannot hit as well as he can and cannot handle left field as well as he can. So I'm thinking there's got to be somebody out there who'll take a chance on him if the Giants don't find a spot for him.
He's an enigma. He's like Belt to me. He goes through streaks where they can't get him out, both of them, and streaks where he can't buy a hit.
Well, this is true. The big difference is that when Brandon Belt goes through streaks where he can't buy a hit, his on-base average is still 300 or better because of his walks.
Good.
I mean, people like to malign Brandon Belt, but if you just take his numbers and separate his name from them and stack them up against the other first basemen, they're not bad. They're really not bad. If you take home runs per at bat, if you take on-base average, if you take walk percentage, he's well in the upper half of first basemen in the major leagues. Well in the upper half.
Right. A lot of it, I think, is expectations early on. And if a player doesn't meet those expectations, he won't be lower results won't be accepted, even if they're good.
Well, and the problem is, if you're a hitter and you're going through life with a name like Belt, you don't have a lot of hope there. You're expected to be a monstrous power hitter, just like, if you name your kid Rocky or Tuffy, he's going to get in fights.
Right. I remember the Phillies had an outfielder come up named in the 50s or 60s named Ted Savage. And I thought, wow, what a name to evoke fear in a pitcher's heart. Ted Savage. Ted Savage probably hit 223. That didn't work. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work. But
I mean, I always thought that probably the best name that anybody ever had in baseball history was Rich Batchelor.
At least on the road.
and I can't remember his name, but there was the Kansas City pitcher who gave up the 6 runs to the Giants in the 9th inning the other day. It was even referred to in one of the articles about the game. It's just unfortunate for a relief pitcher to go through life with a name like, I think it's Blowit.
Oh.
Blowittt, I think is his name.
Oh, you can imagine this poor guy in the schoolyard growing up.
I tell you, I
in second grade, Johnny, are you here? Blow it, to the teacher, right?
Yeah, I mean, I like I say, I think I would change my name to Monica Lewinsky as soon as I was old enough to go to court.
I can see the eyebrows of the clerk rising as he or she read your request.
Well, not if I told her I was a pitcher.
All right,
it's a hard name to go through life with. I mean, it's just like, one of the nicest guys you will ever meet in life is Tuffy Goswesh, but the last name is hard enough to go through life as an athlete, and we have not actually been able to find anybody to tell us if he's got a real first name or if that's a nickname, but he's been known as Tuffy since he got to Arizona State.
Whoa. That's very interesting. I wonder if that would be in the press guide.
It would be if they printed any in the spring.
They haven't done that yet because the free agents are bad.
Well, no, that's not the real reason. The real reason is that the printers have a schedule, and they used to print the media guides around March 1st, and then they were ready for distribution around March 5th or 6th, and that was the second week of spring training. Now it's almost the end of spring training.
Okay. I wonder what the baseball magazines are going through this year. All the fantasy magazines and what have you. Who's gonna finally be where at the end of it all? Did Boros take a big blow to his organization, because the market really seems to have dried up on him, and he's got about 16, 17 guys out there, probably dying.
Well, I suspect that he is becoming somewhat less rigid. He may also be an impetus behind the grievance that was filed this week, but I suspect that he's becoming a little bit more negotiable, if you will, because, the Giants even made a deal with him, and it was a very favorable deal for them, one that was very backloaded so that they could stay under the competitive balance tax.
Well, the competitive balance tax, is that no more than a soft cap, and how in the hell could the union have agreed to that?
It's functioning as a soft cap. The problem is not the competitive balance tax. It's been around for a long time. The problem is that they decided it wasn't working well enough, so they made it tougher by adding in the loss of draft picks and the loss of international slot money.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Okay,
In other words, this is what's stopping the Yankees from going overboard, as if they haven't already.
Yes, it's what's stopping everyone. The Yankees, the Dodgers, the Giants, the Cubs, they're all constrained by this tax because there's a couple of things here. One of them is the tax is going to sunset out at the end of this collective bargaining agreement. So the way it works, the first year you are over, I think you pay a 10% tax on the amount over. And then I think it jumps to 25 the next year and 50 the next year and 100% in the fourth year. But if you get under at any time at the start of the season, or maybe for the whole season, I'm not sure how that works. But if you stay under, then it resets. You go back to zero. So the next year you only pay a 10% penalty. And that's what everyone is looking towards is next year's free agent crops. It's going to be a free-for-all next year. I mean, leading off with Bryce Harper, but there's a ton of other names out there like Clayton Kershaw and Madison Bumgarner at this point. Now, I'm not saying all those guys are going to wind up being free agents, but that's what everybody is keeping an eye open towards, is being able to next year go hell-bent for leather over the salary cap, because since the salary cap will sunset in a couple of years, they can, if you go over next year, you have certainty on how much you're going to pay for taxes going forward, and it's not going to be 100% penalty. I mean, like right now, if the Giants decided that they needed Jake Arrieta and they went out and signed him for $20 million, they're really signing him for $38 million because there'd be an $18 million tax penalty on top of it. Plus, they would lose the rights to a compensatory pick if they lost any Class A free agent, think Madison Bumgarner. They would also lose draft picks. They would also lose international slot money, in addition to paying $38 million a year for a $20 million Jake Arrieta.
Yeah, they're not likely to do that.
No, nobody's likely to do that, and that's one reason why you're seeing both some marginal guys not even attracting interest, and more important than that, some really good guys not attracting interest from the people you would think they would. I mean, let's be honest here. Think about it for a minute. If you're the Dodgers and all you care about is being competitive, do you actually enter into negotiations with Tim Lincecum, or do you just go out and sign Jake Arrieta?
That's a very good question. Timmy just signed, as a matter of fact.
Timmy just signed with the Rangers, and Timmy is also dealing with the most unfortunate death of his brother recently. So he has been unavailable for public comment for a couple of days, and we all understand why and send our condolences.
I'm so sorry. That kid must have been very young.
He was. I mean, he was his older brother, but he was, in his late 30s.
Oh, yeah. Much too young. That's terrible. I like Timmy. Who in San Francisco did not like Timmy Lincecum? I mean, he was just the essence of it all.
Well, I suppose maybe the Grinch could not like him, but I can't think of much of anyone else.
Yeah, I wish him the best. He had a very unsuccessful comeback attempt with the Angels last year, and apparently over the offseason he really changed his conditioning program and changed his concentration. I think he's going to have a successful year. I certainly hope so. Wish him the best.
Well, we'll see. I don't know how well 5'9" and 160 pounds will play in Texas in August. I mean, that's a big ask.
Yeah, they're talking about maybe having him compete for the closer's role. And people forget how successful he was as a relief pitcher in the World Series and the playoffs for the Giants last 2 years that they were.
People wanted to make him a closer as soon as the Giants drafted him. They said he didn't have the body size or the stamina to hold up as a starter. Well, except for the first 10 years, they were right.
Right. Exactly. You just put that 10 spot up there to throw that out there and see what would happen after that. Matt Cain. I was disappointed in the way the Giants fans treated Matt when he was struggling. I can't get over that. To boo him was not classy.
Well, I have to remind you that Giants fans are not necessarily restricted to just those people in the stadium. But the people in the stadium, in many instances, have spent over $100 for a ticket. And they might have bought that ticket 2 months in advance. And by getting Matt Cain, they were 1 day off of getting Madison Bumgarner. And so, they might have started off with a bad attitude. And after that, it comes down to these are, a lot of these people now are wealthy, young, used to being able to be outlandish in their expression of their opinions. Their lives are lived on social media where you don't have to accept the psychological impact of your words. And, I think that that's probably going to become more common rather than less common. It's just a sign of our times and of our society that we live in now, Ralph. People can't disagree without making it personal.
Well, so much of our society is changing to the point where it's almost unrecognizable. But sports has a problem, to get off the subject just a little bit, that I discussed with Hal Bach on a podcast recently, and it's universal. There's it doesn't necessarily have to be tanking where you go all out to lose, but because teams are rewarded by either high draft choices or this, that, or the other thing, in any sport nowadays, it makes the competitive balance a little iffy when going down the road. Mark Cuban, for instance, the owner of San Antonio,
Dallas.
Yeah, or Dallas, yes, I'm sorry, had some scathing words to any baseball fan, saying, hey, as far as I'm concerned, they could just tank the rest of the season, quote unquote, and it'll do us better in the long run. What the hell are they saying? It's always been under our breath, the breath of people, the unspoken word. But is it to the point where they could just flaunt it and just expect the fans not to react? Well, we're going to come to a game so you guys can lose to get a better draft choice for next year. And I can't think of one sport that isn't affected by that.
Well, there's a few things that I have to say about that, and we're going to start with, baseball instituted a draft in 1965, if memory serves me right, maybe 64, 65. So that means that it got on for 89 years without worrying about competitive balance and somehow managed to survive. The second thing that I'm going to say about that is that there are two camps of people in this world. There are the people who think that competitive balance is what makes sports interesting, and there are the people who think that dynasties are what makes sports interesting because it gives everybody something to shoot for and makes certain games more meaningful. The third thing I'm going to say about that is I'm going to quote my friend Bruce Jenkins. Teams may think they're tanking, but players aren't. There's no player out there who is trying to lose. And so what it comes down to is the question of, okay, are you putting your best lineup out there every day? And if you start questioning a head coach or a manager about issues like that without knowing what he knows about health, physical condition, stamina, personal issues, the gamut just, goes on forever. We have no business questioning that. We literally have no business questioning that. To question that is to say that our players are supermen and should be able to show up and play 82 basketball games a year or 162 baseball games a year without question, without discussion. And that's simply not true. Tanking, if you're really concerned about it, then what you do is, you just say, okay, we don't care where you finish. Every year we're going to feed the 30 teams into a computer and we're going to have it jumble them at least 20 million times, and on the 20 million and first iteration, whatever it spits out will be the draft order. Happy?
Not really.
No, not really. And that's the problem. There isn't an answer to this. If you believe that teams are willfully losing games, stop giving them your money. As a fan, that's our only... That's your only recourse, because anything else makes you complicit. And by the way, if you believe teams are willfully losing games, you're probably rooting for the wrong sport in the first place.
Right.
If that's your mindset, then...
Well, like Bruce Jenkins says, it may not be the players involved in the tanking. It could be management in any subtle or unsubtle way. If that's what they want to do, they could handcuff
the only way that I can even begin to see this, Ralph, as existing with management is if a team says, look, we're projected to win 72 games this year. If we sign X and Y free agents, we're projected to win 80, which still doesn't put us in the playoffs. So we're not going to spend $40 million on those two players to still not get in the playoffs. You could possibly say that's tanking. You can definitely say that it's affecting the market.
Well, Michael, if the words didn't come from the owner of a team, it wouldn't quite disturb me as much. But this is Mark Cuban, who, the kind of guy...
But remember what he said, Ralph. He didn't say, I'm glad they're tanking. He didn't say they should keep tanking. He said, as far as I'm concerned, they can tank. Right. It'll be better for us in the long run. Well, yeah, as far as I'm concerned, they could win every game the rest of the season and we still wouldn't make the playoffs. Would you be upset if he said that? Both of those are simply recognitions of reality. If the Mavericks continue to lose, they'll get a better draft pick, and they'll get a better player if they scout correctly. Or maybe they'll get Sam Bowie.
Yes.
I mean, that's the other thing everybody has to remember is tanking doesn't guarantee you a damn thing except the opportunity to make a bigger mistake in the draft.
Right, and you could just go back to finances. You want to go back to early Steinbrenner when he was signing everybody and their dog, and they weren't winning and didn't win until he was suspended, and other people came along and made the money decisions as to where to put the money.
Well, yeah, you can't win games with baseball cards. You can't win games with a baseball reference page. And you cannot win games just with superstars. Yeah, it has been my contention for a long, long time that in order to win, what you need is 7 everyday players who are above average, 1 superstar leader, and a good pitching staff.
You know, that could very well describe this year's San Francisco Giants. You got
Buster Posey,
the superstar, and you have potentially a good pitching staff. Is Mellencamp, I know I'm not pronouncing that right, the closer, was his off year just an enigma,
well, it was injury driven. It was all injury driven, and I think he's going to be fine. I think the thing you have to look at in the Giants' pen, you cannot look at individual pitchers on their own. If you look at it as you've got Hunter Strickland, and then Will Smith, and then Sam Dyson, and then Mark Melancon, you've got 4 pretty damn solid pitchers at the back end of your bullpen. 3 of them throw hard, and then the last guy comes in throwing killer changeups. It's kind of like, I don't know, Mariano Rivera. He didn't throw hard. He threw cutters all the time. Or Trevor Hoffman. I mean, those are the top 2 guys in saves in the history of baseball, and neither of them was a power pitcher.
Is the system of closers changing slowly but surely? You hear about managers like Callaway that says, with the Mets, I may use Familia, who's supposedly the closer in the 7th inning if the situation calls for it, which has always been in the back of my mind. When is a closer most likely to be most effective? And I say maybe it's when the game's on the line in the 6th inning. It doesn't have to be the 7th inning. But because of the salary structure, where closers get X number of dollars per save and this, that, and the other thing, and agents go to arbitration or they go to the management and they say, look, here's what my relief pitcher did, this, that, and the other thing. Is that good for baseball? And do you see it more than just a subtle change? Do you see more and more teams thinking about that?
This is a continuation of the data-driven, in my mind, nonsense of not letting your pitchers face a lineup a third time. Okay. You want to know, you want a good reason why Jake Arrieta and Lance Lynn are not yet signed? They're not yet signed because they're guys who pitch 7 innings. You can't pitch 7 innings anymore. You're not allowed to, because even if you're pitching a perfect game, you can only go 6. You're not allowed to face the lineup a third time.
Good point. Good point. Because they look at the statistics and they say this pitcher is effective, much more effective the first 2 times through the order.
Yeah, but he was effective enough to win 20 games pitching to the lineup the third time. Maybe he wasn't as effective the third time as he was the first and second. But if you're effective enough the first and second times through, and you give up a run or two the third time through, that's probably not going to cost you the game.
Right, and then you have to weigh, well, if I take the guy out after the first 2 times through the lineup, what am I bringing in? And how effective are they going to be, given
Let's be even more direct about it. If you only want your starters to face the lineup twice, that means, unless you've got guys that all pitch perfect games, that means you're going to get 5 innings out of your starters. 5 innings is 15 outs, and that's only 1 base runner every other inning, which is, pretty unusual. I mean, if a guy has a whip under 1.3, he's considered to be a pretty good pitcher, and 1.3 is exactly 6.5 base runners in 5 innings. So let's say that you get 5 innings out of all your guys. You're looking for 650 quality bullpen innings? Good luck.
Yeah.
Good luck. If you have 8 guys in the bullpen, they each have to give you 80 quality innings. That's an inning every other day.
And, Michael, is there some pattern to the fact that bullpens cannot be projected to do what you think they're going to do from year to year? That there's a lot of inconsistency, more so than in starting pitchers. You know what you get with a starting pitcher, but with a bullpen guy, like, what do you get from year to year? That's why I thought signing Mellencamp, what they sign him for 4 years, 3-4 years. That's always iffy. It's always iffy to sign any pitcher for a long-term contract.
Well, I don't disagree with you. I don't disagree with you, but I'm going to turn it around and ask you to view it from the club's point of view. Which would you rather do? Look for somebody that's probably not going to perform up to their numbers and sign them for an extended period of time, or do that every year? Every year you want to sign somebody whose old club didn't lock him up. Well, what do you think the chances of that working out are? Here's a clue. Ask the A's.
Good point.
Nobody was very excited when the Giants traded for Javi Lopez. But boy, everybody sure would like to find Javi Lopez to put back in that bullpen now.
Yep.
All right, sir. I'm going to have to call a halt to the festivities. I've got a game to do here in Hohokam.
Okay. Who's playing today, sir?
The 1-3-1 Texas Rangers are taking on the 2-3-1 Oakland A's.
Oh, okay. So you score the A's and the Giants in spring training as well.
Oh no! In spring training, I go everywhere. I hit all the stadiums, and I think I see all the teams. I've seen Cincinnati, Kansas City. This will be my second time seeing the Rangers, my first time seeing the A's. I've seen, I think, 7 or 8 teams already in 9 days.
Okay, who makes that schedule? Does the league make the schedule, or
for me?
What's up for you?
My boss makes the schedule, and in fact, it can change on a moment's notice. I was sitting in my driveway today, plotting out how to get to Sloan Park to work the Cubs game, and he said, "Hey, I'm transferring you to the A's game today." We are very flexible down here. It's spring training for us too.
Right. Now, is there one particular venue in Arizona that you like more than the others? Not just the ballpark itself, but the town, the atmosphere?
Well, it's tough to beat Scottsdale Stadium. It's now the oldest stadium down here, and it's got a little bit of vintage feel to it, and it's right in the heart of Old Town Scottsdale. You can walk to great restaurants, and watering holes abound. We will talk next time. I'm going to dinner tonight at Don and Charlie's, maybe for the last time. The very famous Don and Charlie's in Scottsdale is closing after spring training of next year. There's some discussion whether they may put a smaller version of it into the hotel that's going to be built on that site. But at this point, all I know is I got to get there soon because it's going away.
Yeah, for sure. Hey, thank you for your time, Michael. This is terrific.
You bet, sir. I will talk with you next week.
It will be fun. And stay healthy and out of trouble, long way from home.
Well, yeah, if I have to pick and choose there, I'll stay healthy.
Okay, good.
All right.
Bye for both. See you soon.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right, everybody. This is your lucky day. You got to listen to Michael Duca from Spring Training. He and I do the San Francisco Giants past, present, and future, comfortably zoned radio network. Join us next week. Thank you, everybody. Adios.